Morgan Ortagus is President Trump's former State Department spokesperson, and she joins me now. Morgan, great to have you with us today. You know, yesterday, as President Biden was making his way, he said it's clear to Putin and to China and that Europe and the United States are tight and that the G7 is going to move. Is that true? Is that your assessment of the way things will work?
No, I wish it was true. I mean, listen, I commend the president for trying to continue the policies from the Trump administration, from Mike Pompeo, as it relates to China. There's been bipartisan consensus on China, and while I've been critical of their policy towards Iran and the Middle East and towards Israel, I do think it's positive that they're moving forward. But there are dangerous things that are going on in our coalition. Listen, Germany has been at the forefront of a EU trade deal and of trying to improve trade ties between EU and between Germany and China. Merkel's been very active and been the main leader pushing for this. When you look at Macron, the leader of France, he has said that he doesn't want to join the United States, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, in some sort of ideological campaign against China. We know all too well, you've reported at how Germany has allowed Nord Stream 2 to be built, the energy pipeline, which will make sure that Europe is dependent on Russian energy. So other than a lot of words, I haven't seen any actions where the French, the Germans, the British, as much as I like our allies, I'm not seeing actions where they're actually willing to step up to China, step up to Russia. Where are the human rights sanctions against China? Where is the genocide designation that the Trump administration put on China for the Xinjiang region, for the genocide of the Uyghurs? This is scary stuff, and America, as we knew in the Trump administration, may have to lead alone on many of these issues.
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting, Morgan, the way that you lay it out. And I know Jonathan Swan wrote a very persuasive piece on this today as well in Axios, which you pointed out. But President Macron is talking about wanting to have a strategic autonomy. And when you talk about these issues, a lot of folks will point to it and say, well, that's because President Trump ruined those relationships. Here's David Axelrod, and then I want to get your reaction to that on the other side.
Okay.
His hard task is to persuade them that the commitments that he makes are commitments the United States will stand by even after he's gone. And there is, you know, post-traumatic stress syndrome from Trump. And so that is really his task.
How do you respond to that, Morgan?
Listen, President Trump forced NATO to deal with some very, very hard truths, and that was that people were committing to the defense of each. The whole point of NATO is to be able to defend each other should any of our enemies attack anyone a part of NATO. And you can't realistically go into an area of geopolitical competition, of great power competition between the United States, China, and Russia when people refuse to live up to their commitments and pay their fair share. So if a commitment between the United States and NATO, or between the United States and France and Germany, can be ruined with one man, if you believe, you know, David Axelrod there, then it's not a real commitment. And we know it goes beyond that, right? We know that this is the ties between our two people, but we have to really ask ourselves, whenever you are in the middle of seeing China, the Chinese Communist Party, destroy autonomy and freedom and democracy in Hong Kong, when you're seeing them commit genocide, and during the middle of all of that, you push for stronger trade deals between the two of them. Now, we had a trade deal in the United States, of course, that President Trump inked, but we were still incredibly aggressive on these policies against them. It's really going to be, Martha, I think, the Indo-Pacific countries, the countries like Australia, the countries like Vietnam, and those that neighbor China, that understand. India understands what it's like to share a border with China. All of these countries, we're going to have to double down on those relationships, on those alliances, because I'm very, very discouraged by the actions coming from our quote-unquote European allies.
I think it's a fascinating way to look at this situation. Who will be on our side when it really comes down to it? And you talk about India, you talk about Australia, you talk about Japan, the people who have the most sort of pressing interests in that region. And then, of course, the big question of this meeting with Putin. Here's just a moment that we thought was interesting from a reporter just shouting a question at the president moments ago. Watch this.
Mr. President, do you believe your meeting with Putin can change his behavior in a way sanctions have not yet?
Mr. President, did you...
Just sort of a smile, a little bit of a half laugh, and the question is a big one, Morgan. Do you think that your discussions with Vladimir Putin, the president, can change his behavior in a way that sanctions have not?
No, I don't think there's any president that's been able to do that. One man can't do that. This is why you have to enforce sanctions, why you have to look. Listen, Putin, and I've been in the room with him with Mike Pompeo, Putin knows who is an actual tough guy. Putin knows where he's going to be held accountable, what he can get away with, what he can't. He can read through all of these things. So, you know, listen, it's an important meeting. President Biden is saying that he wants predictability out of the relationship with Russia. I don't really know what that means. The bigger question, Martha, is does Putin want predictability out of the relationship with us?
Yeah, I kind of doubt it, just based on his history. I have to go, but just a real quick answer on this. Do you think, you know, we all remember the Helsinki press conference between Putin and President Trump.
Yes.
Do you think that they allow that kind of environment to happen again, given how that went? Do you think we're going to see President Biden standing up there next to President Putin taking questions?
Well, he should. The President of the United States should take questions whenever he's meeting with the leader of Russia. Let's hope what doesn't happen to Secretary Blinken and his Chinese counterparts. Let's hope that's not repeated with President Biden, because that was an embarrassing first meeting with the Chinese.
Yeah,
and on the way out, I know we've had a serious thing. I just want to say, Martha, you look absolutely gorgeous today. Like the best pink dress and hair. You look amazing.
I've got a lot going on here. I look like a highlighter pen. Morgan, thank you. Thank you so much. Always good to see you. Thanks for coming in.